What would you do if your closest neighbor used your trust to steal your dream home? Sarah thought she knew Monica well enough to share everything. For 3 years, they'd been the kind of neighbors who watered each other's plants and shared weekend coffee on the porch. That trust would cost Sarah everything she'd worked for. You'd been saving for 7 years to upgrade from your starter condo. Every bonus, every tax return, every side hustle went straight into your down payment fund. When you finally hit your target amount, you shared the news with Monica over morning coffee, practically vibrating with excitement. Monica seemed genuinely thrilled for you. She even offered to help, mentioning that her husband David worked in commercial real estate and knew plenty of residential agents. You gratefully accepted, thinking how lucky you were to have such supportive neighbors. David connected you with an agent named Claire who seemed perfect, professional, knowledgeable, and patient with your endless questions. You spent weeks looking at properties, sharing every detail with Monica because she'd asked you to keep her updated on your house hunting journey. Then you found it, the house that checked every single box on your list. Renovated kitchen, huge backyard, perfect neighborhood, and just barely within your budget. You called Monica immediately, unable to contain your joy as you described every perfect detail. You were supposed to submit your offer the next morning. Claire advised you to go in strong but not over-asking, given the market conditions. You'd finally be a homeowner, finally have the space to start the life you'd been planning. But when Claire called you at 8 a.m., her voice carried a confusion that made your stomach drop. The house had been sold. Not just sold, but already under contract as of last night. Cash offer, way over asking price. You were devastated, but tried to move on. The right house would come along. That's what you kept telling yourself as you resumed the exhausting search. Then 3 weeks later, you saw Monica outside and noticed something odd about her expression when she saw you. She seemed nervous, talking too fast about weather and her garden. Then she mentioned, almost as an afterthought, that she and David had just closed on an investment property. Your chest tightened as you asked where it was located. The address she gave made your blood run cold. It was your house, your dream house, the one you described in intimate detail, down to how you'd arrange furniture in each room. Monica had stolen it right out from under you. When you pressed her on it, she actually had the audacity to act like it was coincidence. Just happened to see the listing, just happened to love it, just happened to have cash ready for an immediate offer. She wouldn't quite meet your eyes. You felt sick, betrayed. You'd handed her everything she needed to swoop in and take what you'd worked so hard for. David's real estate connections suddenly made perfect sense. They'd used you as their personal house scout. For weeks, you watched them renovate your house. Every improvement you'd planned to make, they were doing. The fury burned in your chest every time you saw them loading design materials into their driveway, but you smiled and waved because you were already forming a plan. See, Monica had mentioned their plan was to flip the house for profit. They'd renovate for 3 months, then list it at a significant markup. She'd actually bragged about the projected profit margin, twisting the knife deeper into your back. You started your research, property records, permit databases, contractor licensing sites. You learned everything about real estate regulations in your county. It turned out there were very specific rules about renovation permits, occupancy requirements, and rental property disclosures. And here's where it gets interesting. Remember how Monica said it was an investment property? In your county, that designation comes with very specific permit requirements that differ from primary residences. Requirements they hadn't followed. The renovations they were doing required permits they'd never pulled. The county takes this seriously because unpermitted work can affect property values, safety inspections, and tax assessments for the entire neighborhood. One anonymous tip is all it takes to trigger an investigation. You made that call on a Tuesday morning. Calmly, factually, you reported the unpermitted renovation work at the address, mentioning it was designated as an investment property. The inspector said they'd look into it within the week. 3 days later, you watched from your window as a county vehicle pulled up to their house. The inspector spent 40 minutes inside. Monica's face when she walked him out told you everything you needed to know. The stop work order went up that afternoon. Bright red notice on the front door, visible to everyone who drove by. All renovation work halted until they could properly permit everything and pay the associated fines. But it got better. To get proper permits retroactively, they needed licensed contractor signatures for all work completed. Turns out David's brother-in-law, who'd been doing most of the renovation, wasn't actually licensed. That work would have to be inspected, possibly redone. The delays stretched from weeks into months. Every week they couldn't work meant money lost on their construction loan. The profit margin they'd bragged about was evaporating. You watched it all unfold from your porch with your morning coffee. Monica stopped making eye contact entirely. When you passed on the street, she'd suddenly become very interested in her phone. David looked perpetually stressed, always on calls with contractors or lawyers. The investment property was becoming a money pit. Then came the next phase. Once they finally got their permits sorted, you waited until the work was nearly complete. Then you started documenting every single code violation you could identify. Fence height, setback distances, that unpermitted deck addition. Each violation got its own detailed report to the appropriate county department. Planning and zoning, building safety, code enforcement. You'd become an expert in municipal regulations, and you put that knowledge to work with surgical precision. 6 months after their purchase, they finally listed the house, but now it came with disclosure requirements about all the code enforcement issues and permit problems. That dream markup they'd planned had turned into a desperate attempt to break even. The house sat on the market for 3 months. Every potential buyer's inspector found issues that traced back to the permit problems. Monica and David were hemorrhaging money on mortgage payments, property taxes, and insurance for a house nobody wanted. You heard through neighborhood gossip that they'd eventually sold at a loss. After all the renovation costs, permit fees, fines, and legal expenses, they'd lost nearly $40,000 on their investment property. Your dream house had become their nightmare. The best part came a few weeks later. You'd continued your house search legitimately, and you found another property. Different house, but honestly better suited to your needs. And this time you told absolutely no one until after you'd closed. You saw Monica at the mailbox the day you moved in. She looked at the moving truck, then at you, and something clicked behind her eyes. She knew. Maybe not the details, but she knew that somehow her betrayal had circled back around. You never confronted her directly, never admitted to the complaints or the reports. You simply smiled the same friendly smile you'd always given her and said you'd finally found the perfect place. Sometimes the best revenge is just living well. Monica and David moved away 6 months later. You heard they'd taken a significant financial hit between the failed flip and their own moving costs. Meanwhile, you were hosting your first housewarming party in your new home. The lesson stuck with you, though. Trust is valuable, but information is power. Some people will use your dreams as a roadmap to their own profit. But when someone plays dirty, sometimes you have to know the rules better than they do. Looking back, you realize that Monica did you a favor in a twisted way. That first house came with problems she inherited. Your house, the one you eventually bought, was better in every way, and you got to watch karma work overtime in the process. These days, when you have coffee on your porch, you think about how close you came to having neighbors who'd betrayed you. Instead, you have a better house, honest neighbors, and the quiet satisfaction of knowing that sometimes patience and research beat cash and connections. What would you have done in